Nobody asked for this list, but I'm making it anyway. And honestly, that's going to be a theme. These are the 10 worst heroes in Heroes vs. Hordes. Each one is bad because I say so. And when I say because I say so, what I really mean is they suffer from at least one of these unforgivable flaws. Some heroes I can't actually control, while others require ramping damage without the time needed to ramp. Then there's directional damage. Look, I'm not here to aim, okay? I don't want to think. So if there's an unconventional playstyle, you're pushed down this list. But some of these heroes are the worst purely out of my spite for them. They have personally slighted me, and so they get the list. And last, some heroes are just so forgettable that I only remember they exist when I'm making a list like this in the first place. But lucky for us, most of these heroes are so bad that devs won't even feature them in events, so you won't accidentally spend real money on them. Furthermore, when one of the lead devs challenges you to use one of these heroes to beat a chapter, well, that's not exactly a glowing endorsement. At the end of the day, these are the 10 worst heroes because I get to make the list. So let's start with number 10, and hopefully I'll offend someone along the way. Number 10 is the Crazy Tinkerer. I want to like the Crazy Tinkerer. Thematically, he's great. Wild goggles, running in circles, dropping bombs everywhere. That sounds like fun. The problem? The Horde attack from the side, but he drops bombs below himself. So for his weapons to actually hit anything, enemies have to be behind you. And most of the time, they're not. This makes his playstyle kinda weird. And while he's solid for early Nightmare mode and can be fun in boss brawl, the fact you have to think about positioning just kinda ruins him for me. He's like a little ball of unfortunate design. Sure, you can make him work, but I'd rather have a hero that just works, without any tinkering. And at least Crazy Tinker is memorable, which is more than I can say about this next guy. And number 9 is Scroll Sage. I don't know anything about this guy. Do you remember when he came out? Because I sure don't. Do you remember why he came out? No clue. Does he fit any theme? Not really. Is he fun? Couldn't tell you. Does anybody talk about him? Nope. Why does he exist? I have absolutely no idea. And while I don't remember Scroll Sage, the next guy eats at me constantly. And number 8, Necromancer. This one is pure revenge. Necromancer personally slighted me when I first started playing, and I've never forgiven him. I have enough shards to get him up to almost 4 stars, but I don't have him. Why? Because he was my first adventure hero and I didn't do my adventures. Now every time I see him, I get mad and sad and annoyed. So I'm putting him at number 8 out of pure spite, and there's absolutely nothing he can do about it. Ha ha ha. And so Necromancer made this list out of my pure hatred. The next one, just pure disappointment. At number 7, I have Frost Queen. When your whole vibe is frozen to the point where I forget your name, you're already off to a rough start. Elsa suffers from the same problem as a lot of bad heroes, ramping damage that takes too long to be useful. On top of that, she leans way too hard into freezing enemies instead of actually, killing them. Sure, she has her uses. Her global buffs are solid, but at the end of the day, I don't want to stare at a Disney movie while I'm trying to mow down Horde. I want a hero with attitude, not someone with mom and dad issues. Next, we move from Frost to Fire. At number 6, I have Fire Mage. Fire Mage. One of the first heroes you get that costs nothing but gems, and technically does a lot of damage. Sounds great, right? Wrong. Because that damage only matters if you actually hit something, which you won't. He shoots fire in one direction, and that area of effect is just small enough to be annoying. So you either have to spend the whole game awkwardly aiming like a precision shooter, or accept the fact that half your attacks will whiff completely. And who has time for that? I'm here to survive, not practice my thumb coordination. Sure, he's free to play friendly, and his global buffs are decent, but there are just better heroes out there. Ones that actually hit things, without demanding a full-time job of aiming. And while Fire Mage might disappoint you when you miss, this hero just disappoints you all the time. Number 5 is Runemaster. What a disappointing adventure hero. Visually, he's a mess. His whole gimmick is running over these little rune things, but when you do, nothing happens. No satisfying effect, no big payoff. I think there's a slight color change in your spinning attack, but that's not doing damage anyway because it's too close to you. So if you're playing on low visibility mode, forget it. His abilities might as well not even exist. That just makes him incredibly unrewarding to play. I'm sure he could be good, and his global buffs aren't the worst, but I don't know how to make him work. And more importantly, I don't really want to. If a hero isn't fun, why would I ever bother playing them again? And if Runemaster feels like you're not doing anything, our next guy actually manages not to do anything. Number 4 is Dark Ranger. I really wanted to like Dark Ranger. He's got a cool vibe, you know? But at the end of the day, he's just kinda emo. Some of his skills don't do damage, and they just slow down Horde. Except the slow isn't strong enough and it's not reliable. So you end up just following your pet around trying to be useful. And guess what? You're gonna have to aim the whole time. So this guy combines the worst aspects of Fire Mage with the worst aspects of Runemaster into one little frustrating hero. He's memorable, but not in the way you'd want a hero to be. More like that one awkward guy at the party that follows you around and you can't break away from conversation. But at least Dark Ranger's at the party. This next guy doesn't even deserve an invite. Number 3 is Void Raven, and she suffers from one of the most frustrating flaws, ramping damage. Her main damage skill relies on you hitting an enemy and then having to wait 3 seconds for the damage to kick in. The problem is, in 3 seconds, the Horde are hitting you, and you're just running around trying to get them off. You'll spend more time kiting than actually doing damage. Her ultimate isn't great either, because it limits the damage to the area around her, and so she's not even hitting Horde on the edge of the screen. That means, all in all, her damage is way less compared to other heroes. And while she'll always have a special place in my heart for being the first grind event hero I ever got, I don't ever play her because the visual effects are so underwhelming. There's nothing in her kit that feels rewarding, and that's a problem for a video game. While Void Raven takes her sweet time to do any damage during a run, this next hero just never does any damage. Number 2 is Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage is fine for the very first tutorial, no complaints there. But once you move past that, you really shouldn't bother with her. She does have some solid global buffs that make your other heroes stronger, but they don't make her strong enough. Even her new level 140 skill tries to compensate for the base flaw in her kit. She can only hit one Horde at a time. It feels like every skill she acquires is just making up for that fact. So maybe they should just make her basic attack automatically penetrate enemies. If Void Raven takes 3 seconds to ramp up her damage, Arcane Mage takes a year. And by that time, you have other heroes that are going to do way more damage than she does. So unless you're early in the game, she's just not worth your time. And what's the worst hero in Heroes vs. Hordes? Well, you're just along for the ride on this one. Number 1 is Spirit Shaman. Spirit Shaman takes the worst parts of Necromancer and Runemaster and mashes them together into a hero that does no damage, gives you no control, and is just a total loss of agency. Her beasts do the fighting for you, but there's no way to make them attack what you actually want. Half the time, I don't even know what they're doing. They wander off in random directions and you just stand there doing literally nothing. And sure, you can make her work. I even beat the hardest level in the game with her. But it wasn't fun and I had no idea what was going on all the time. You basically just run up and down the screen while your beasts try and do something useful. But at that point, what's the point of playing a game if you're not actually playing? The weird playstyle and lack of control make her truly horrible, but at least she's memorable for being that bad. And that's my list. The 10 worst heroes in Heroes vs. Hordes. I'm sure I've offended someone, and to that I say, you're welcome. Look, all these heroes are technically usable, but they're also bad. And more importantly to me, they're not fun. And since games are meant to be fun, a hero that's fun is by definition a bad hero. My apologies to the devs who put in the hard work, but when you've got over 50 heroes, there's bound to be a bottom 10. It's just the way of life. But let's be real, no one's losing sleep over not playing Spirit Shaman. And who knows, maybe this list will fade into obscurity, just like the Scroll Sage, and no one will remember it tomorrow anyway. I'm Coles, a high-level HVH player. You can follow me on Reddit, Discord, or here. I'm always happy to answer questions. If you want priority answers, check out my Patreon, where you can also become an executive producer, just like Cake Invictus, the executive producer of this video. That said, opinions here are my own, so don't blame him for anything. And if it wasn't clear, this list was meant to be fun, and hopefully it sparks some conversation. So remember, always do your adventures! Or you'll end up with your own personal Necromancer, a hero you can never stand to see again.